I was born in Brooklyn to Egyptian immigrants who moved here about 2 or 3 years before I was born. I grew up expecting, I guess, to be a doctor or an engineer. I remember as a kid, my dad said if I wanted to be a complete disappointment, he'd be okay if I became a lawyer. Now I'm in the arts, so I guess the joke's on them. I am the president and CEO of United States Artists, which is a nonprofit organization that is headquartered here in Chicago. Basically, we were the private sector solution to when Congress defunded the NEA in the 90s. So our mandate is we give up to 50 artists an unrestricted $50,000 award every year. We're very happy to do it. They are filmmakers, dancers, musicians, architects, fashion designers, painters. We really encourage the folks who receive our award to use it to take care of their lives because so much money in the arts is project specific. We're a country that's still figuring out our cultural identity as we're moving. And I think that there's no way to name that cultural identity without looking at artists, because essentially artists are just storytellers and they do it in different ways. How do we tell the story of what's happening for Indigenous folks in Alaska? That's also relevant to, Cuban immigrants in Miami. That's also the same for working class dock workers in Philly, and it's artists. Because if we can take care of them, we're essentially taking care of the cultural heritage that belongs to all of us. I think that what I have learned about leading a nonprofit is you get better at doing it as you learn to listen more deeply, which is super hard. You're the one that has to bring the money in, and you're the one that has to get the money out. And oftentimes those communities are drastically different. And then leading a nonprofit is being charged to help solve a problem that is oftentimes changing as fast as your country is. Whether it's in the arts or dealing with issues of homelessness or public health, those issues don't stay stagnant. I think it's really common for women in leadership to think about imposter syndrome, or to feel like they don't deserve to be where they are, or that they have to justify how they got here. Making a profession or a vocation, it's a little luck. And I think it's your job to figure out the luck's not going to carry you alone. And you have to work really, really hard to justify that luck. Sometimes I will be the only woman in a finance meeting, or the only Black person in this space, or the only Muslim person in that space. And I feel a little bit like that, it's not imposter syndrome, it's literally like I am the foreign person here. And I'm trying to figure out what's happening at the same time where everyone is wondering what I'm doing here, because no one who has looked like me has occupied that space quite yet. I got really sick a few years ago. I had bone cancer. I am in remission. I'm totally fine now, which feels great. But when I was still sort of figuring out things, I spent some time around other people who were sick, far sicker than I was. And I think that has really informed how I think about leadership, which is closing cannot be the worst thing that happens to us. We should remain relevant to the communities we serve, and if we don't, it's okay to let it go. It's okay to let go. It's impossible to make art, I think, without considering your experience in the world, right? So women are making art as women in the world, and Black folks are making art as Black folks in the world, and queer folks are making art as queer folks in the world. I think the thing that in any way might inform the experience of making that art is that the world initially was not designed for them to have very much power or leadership. And I think as a woman, in the world, in a leadership position, it just sort of feels the same. It's that, of course, I'm bringing something different because being here is just different. And maybe one day, if we're very lucky, it won't feel so different anymore.